Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Louise Edington with Cosmic Owl Astrology. And it's my great pleasure to have back with me today Steve Judd. And Steve has been doing a lot of interviews about this big shift that we're going through. And in fact, he even ran an event called Shift Happens because we are going through an amazing shift. And we did talk a bit about it last time he was on, but there's always more to discover. And so we're just going to talk about other things because it's just unprecedented what we're going through right now. But before we dive in, I'd love Steve has made a movie, and I feel it's kind of relevant to what we're talking about because we're going to talk a little bit about a historical event, and he's made a movie about the history of astrology. So, Steve, tell us a bit about the movie.
Well, it's going to take me a couple of minutes, so I'll try and keep it
Mm.
as concise as possible. It's not a movie, it's a documentary
Oh,
series.
sorry. Yeah.
Um, and we have 11 episodes. Episode 0, which is now complete and will be being published very shortly, free of charge to everyone, is the taster, which we're putting around various media organizations and film studios and distributors, and just to see it attract some interest. And that's looking at snippets from all the other 10 episodes. That's about half an hour long. Each episode is going to be somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes long. Episode 1 is about prehistory, from bone carvings of calendars through to cave paintings, stone circles, and up to about 600 BCE. So it includes Mesopotamia, the stone circles in Western Europe, Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
even Crete. Episode
Cool.
2 is Greece, from 600 BCE through to about 150 BCE. And episode 3 is Rome, from about 150 BCE to 450 CE. And one thing, we traveled to a lot of different places in Rome and Greece. One of the things that really fascinated me, Louise, which I never realized before, is that when you're looking at Greece, originally people like Pythagoras, and then a couple of hundred years later, people like Plato and Aristotle, that they were looking at the cosmos, they were looking at the galaxies and the solar system, and they were looking at the orbits of the planets in terms of finding some type of divine meaning, some type of celestial order, and they were talking about the ascent of the soul through the planets to the heavens. So it's very much a cosmological perspective. Whereas once you get to Rome, within the space of 50 years, it's like, yeah, I'm not interested in the cosmos. When can I become emperor? When can I have sex? How can I
Yeah.
make money? It's all about me. So in Greece,
Mm-hmm.
it's all about the big picture. In Rome, it's all about me. And that says a lot about the cultures at the time.
Oh, it does.
It really
Mm.
does. Episode 4 covers, episode 3 is Rome. Episode 4 covers the fall of the Roman Empire through Constantinople, Byzantium, nowadays Istanbul, through the Levant, along the North African coast to Morocco, up to about 800 CE, 900 CE. And then we look at in episode 5, the Islamic Golden Age in Spain. And that's just amazing. The geometry in there is just perfect. Then we're looking at the European Renaissance and the movement of astrology in the Renaissance in episode 6. Episode 7 will be the times of magical England, 1450 to, say, the Civil War. And then episode 7 will be the jump of astrology to, have I got this right? 4 is 5 is 6 is the Renaissance, 7 is magical England, 8 is the jump of astrology across the water to America, when it was basically discontinued in Britain for 80 years. But at the same time in Europe, you've got the rise of people like Kepler, Galileo, and in Britain, Newton. Episode 9 is the return of astrology to Europe and the period of the discovery of the outer planets, from the discovery of Venus to the discovery of Pluto. And episode 10 is about 1930 to 2030, especially focusing on the last 25 years and the development of the internet. Because realistically, who had a computer, let alone a laptop 30 years ago? Who had an email 30 years ago? We've accelerated really fast. So the time is right for this documentary. There's a lot of interest in it. We're going to be putting out, hopefully, there is a lot of big money interested in it, but we don't want to go with the big boys. We'd rather keep it local and non-corporate. We may have to bite the corporate bullet at some stage, but initially, episode 0 will be published before the end of June.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. So, and I'll share it. I'll share it everywhere, with my memberships.
So that's that. And it's one of the things I realized on this is that somehow, since the dawn of history, since humanity got off its knuckles on the East African plain and looked up at the sky and went, what the hell is all that? Yeah, and look at those lights moving quickly. Let's make legends. Let's make stories. From that moment to here, astrology's outlasted every doctrine, theology, dogma, religion, empire.
Yeah.
Astrology is the one constant thing that's been there since the birth of humanity.
And all kinds of religions and yeah. And it's really kind of appropriate that we kind of go through that for this, what we're talking about today, because so your feeling when as you were making the documentary and as you've kind of finished it with where we're at now, with what's happening and this big shift that's happening, I kind of feel that we're moving back to that original cosmological perspective more, don't you?
I would hope so. I'm a big fan of an American anthropologist called Terence McKenna. He's dead now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he was an eschatologist. He studied the Greek notion of eschatology, the eschaton, the moment of transcendence at the end of time. And I believe that what's going on now is a kind of end of culture phenomenon. And that's not to say we're at the end of the world or the end of history.
No.
But it is to say we're at the end of our apprenticeship and our training period as a species, and that we're about to take an evolutionary leap forward at such a vastly accelerated rate, the like of which has never even really been thought about, let alone seen before. And of course, there's a lot of the dinosaur power brokers who have dominated culture over the last couple of thousand years, who have got a vested interest in the majority of humanity staying dumbed down and not doing that. But they're doomed to failure.
I think so.
But there is a caveat. And that is that if humanity doesn't make this evolutionary leap, then we will probably become extinct quite quickly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah.
And when I see a lot of the young kids of today, the Generation Z and the Generation X is saying, no, I don't want babies. Climate chaos is killing this planet. I don't want to bring a child up in this world with the way it is. It's like, yeah. These are biggest times of uncertainty, I think, probably in history.
And it probably wouldn't be that bad a thing for some less children to be born, but I have 2 Generation Z or Z daughters, and one has no intention of having children, but the other one wants 4. So so there are some that do want them. So they're not all saying they don't want them.
I have a 26-year-old granddaughter who's basically saying, "Look, I'm probably not going to be alive in 30 years' time because the planet's going over dogs. So I'm just going to have as much fun as I can."
So, but there are a range of things. I think we hear about all the ones that are kind of like doom and gloom. And then there's ones like my youngest. She's 25 now, or soon, on the solstice, actually. Nice 0 Cancer baby. So there you go. So...
Well, I'm a pragmatist, I'm
Mm,
a realist, and I'm down to earth and grounded, which for an astrologer is pretty
mm,
unusual.
mm.
But I also retain a great deal of hope
Yeah,
and
yeah,
optimism.
yeah, yeah. And Steve and I have discovered my sun and his moon are at the same degree, Sag. So that's where the
So,
hope and optimism comes in, I think. So
so we're being very polite because when we're not on camera, we're nowhere near as polite as we are
no,
now.
we're not.
No, we're
No,
not.
no. So really, I'd love to start with this Saturn-Neptune conjunction that we have coming up, and of course, it is tied in with Pluto having changed signs into Aquarius. Uranus will be changing signs into Gemini. But this is a conjunction at what's called the 0 point, the point of creation. Some people call it 0 Aries, first degree of the zodiac. Happens to be where my South Node sits, so no wonder I'm really interested in it. But thanks to a presentation by our mutual friend Kathy Beale, who I also do videos with, professional Aquarian, there was a comment in a presentation she did that went further back than any astrologer I know of, and found another conjunction of Saturn and Neptune back at 4,361 BCE. And that's why I kind of feel it ties in with your movie theme, where you started and where you end, because you started with, kind of all that time back then, really, right? So,
The earliest Neolithic
mm-hmm,
constructions in Britain, basically a couple of stone circles in southwest Wales,
mm-hmm,
one stone circle on the Outer Hebrides, and particularly the West Kennet Longbarrow, as part of the Avebury-Silbury complex,
yeah,
are all dated to somewhere between 4,200 to 4,400 BCE.
mm-hmm,
So this was the start, and these structures are all aligned precisely to midwinter or midsummer sunrise or sunset. So there's
mm-hmm,
obviously a very clear correlation of our Neolithic ancestors with the heavens and the observation of solstices and equinoxes. They
mm-hmm,
knew what they were doing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that knocks the theories of our ancestors as being lion-clad savages right on the head. They're probably
Oh,
as advanced, if not more so, than we are in stellar observation and the understanding of a ritual that goes with it.
and if and also other cultures too, pre-Sumerian even,
Yes,
and Egypt, there's things that date from then and even before, that are
yes.
almost like beyond our imagination. Nobody knows how they managed to get the stones to Stonehenge yet, or build the pyramids, for example, and things like
We've
that,
got
right?
ideas, but it's not provable.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Sumeria is dated. Sumeria is the first of the Mesopotamian cultures that we've got absolute certain proof of, but we
Mm,
still can't translate the Sumerian alphabet yet.
no.
And that's
Mhm,
again dated to about 4,400, 500 BCE. But
mhm.
they have legends in the Sumerian scriptures that have been translated. They consistently talk of a group called the Anunnaki,
Mhm,
who are white-winged beings from the north, who educated them in herbology, astrology, astronomy, sciences. But the
mhm,
thing is, cultures all around the world, in Polynesia, in Zimbabwe, um, all around the world, there's deep old legends of white-winged beings from the north.
mhm.
Now, this points potentially to a time where the flood,
Yeah.
when the ice sheet broke around 12,500 years ago. And
Mhm,
that is half of a 25,000 year cycle, which is a big one in astrology with precession.
mhm. Yeah,
So it just all of these things, they just point to this time now as
yeah.
being a really sort of a nexus point, a closure of so many cycles, and hopefully the emergence of something brand new.
Yeah, well, I think so, 0 point. And the whole culture that is now kind of dying that we live in is kind of began then, really, I think, back then with all those kind of things that were installed and how we worked with them. So it's really interesting to think about what happened back then. And there's all kinds of those stories like the Atlantis things, and I don't know whether that
Yeah,
is real.
unprovable.
Oh
Yeah.
no, none of it's provable, but they're kind of myths, I guess. And I'm really hoping with Saturn and being structures and the patriarchy, for want of a better word, and Neptune meeting together, because that time had Steve and I are both fans of using AI to help our work, but a lot of the cultures then were more matrifocal and communal, right? So, so all of that I'm hoping will come back, bringing in not a matriarchy instead of a patriarchy, but more kind of communal people coming together, because Saturn is structures and boundaries and Neptune is limitless, right? So why can't we kind of combine them and kind of come back together into this kind of more communal, realizing we're all interconnected kind of energy? But we always have free will, as you said.
Well, yesterday someone asked me a really good question about is there still such a thing as destiny?
Mm,
And over the years, I've always fought against the idea of destiny and fate.
mm,
I've always been free will orientated.
mhm.
My chart shows that disposition. So what comes
Mine too.
first? The idea of a chart.
Mm,
But recently, I've become more open to the ideas of destiny, not in
mhm.
terms of fate.
Yeah.
I would argue against fate forever. But there are certain things that we are here to do.
Mm.
There are
Yeah.
certain, and the chart shows what, if you choose to go along this route of belief, then the chart shows what your mission statement is,
Mhm.
why you volunteered to come here, what your purpose is, and when are the best times to manifest this and how to manifest
Mm.
it. And in certain ways, it's capable of saying, okay, you're going to do this. This is going to happen. But whether you choose to do it willingly or kicking and screaming is up to you.
Yeah.
And that's where the
e-
free will comes in.
Exactly.
Now, with the Saturn-Neptune thing, that's where it's fate or free will, because
Mhm.
if we fight against this, then Neptune's just going to dissolve all of the old structures.
Yes.
Everything's going to collapse. There'll be
Mhm.
just general disorder in a Neptunian fog, and it'll all get really messy.
Mhm.
Alternatively, we can structure the imagination and move into a future that's not where the rules are nowhere near as rigid as they have been in the past, where we can bend the rules instead of breaking them and
Mhm.
change boundaries that have been long established from concrete and steel into rubber and elastic.
Mhm.
And that will create a much more open minded and more spiritual attitude towards human evolution.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think we're all about to suddenly become psychic or telepathic,
No.
but I
No. No.
do think we're all going to become a lot more empathic,
Mhm.
intuitive, and compassionate.
And bringing that energy into all that we do. So just for astrologers, for example, I'm really hoping, and I would love to see astrology generally change away from the less, like, as you mentioned, we went through that whole, am I going to be king? Let's plan my wars by astrology, the real predictive kind of energy. Um, because as we know, you've been practicing longer than I have. But just from my practice, we see that, these predictions, sometimes events happen that are in line with the predictions. Sometimes, often they don't, or both happen. There's good things happen and the dire things. And there's a real, I see as a tendency amongst many in the astrology world to predict the dire. and, and
There
yeah.
are. There are.
Mhm.
I'm not. name people, that would be unethical.
No, no,
But there
I
are
wouldn't.
certain astrologers out there on both sides of the Atlantic
Mm-hmm.
who delight in diversification, predicting war,
Mm-hmm.
and dividing people. And I just question. I question their motives, or actually, I question their intelligence.
And
Which
I
is a
think
bit
it's
of
that a lot of it's their fear as well, though, and not
yes,
seeing, not
yeah,
kind of looking at the bigger picture. I think as well of the fact we're in these unprecedented times. So I wouldn't call anybody out either. It's it is what it is. But it just distresses me sometimes. I think of one example was the Democratic convention when Kamala Harris was nominated. It was
yeah,
on a it was on a powerful weekend astrologically, and everybody was predicting a repeat of the 1960s convention where there was big riots and lots of violence and people hurt, and it was not. It was a really peaceful, joyous occasion,
yeah.
So it was like, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
I don't know when you're planning on putting this broadcast out.
Mm.
Hopefully, relatively soon.
Oh,
Because
today.
today,
Yeah.
great,
Hmm.
because today
Yeah.
is the 5th of June,
Hmm.
and in 4 days' time, 4 days' time, Jupiter will move into Cancer.
Yeah.
Along with Mercury, there'll be a Mercury-Jupiter conjunction at 2950 something of Gemini.
Hmm.
And then both Mercury and Jupiter will move into 0 degrees of Cancer within 24 hours of each other and
Hmm.
immediately square Saturn and Neptune for a couple of days,
Yeah.
7th, 8th, 9th of this month, June.
Hmm. Hmm.
And myself and many other astrologers have been saying that this is going to be a lot of rhetoric, hype and spin, loud
Yes.
noise, and it's all going to be over the top and larger than life. And as we record this on June the 5th, we're seeing this already, that certain situations that have been building all year are now just escalating out of control,
Oh,
whether it's in America or Britain, Ukraine, or the Middle East.
oh,
It's
everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere, out of
Hmm.
control. And this is classic.
Hmm.
See, with Jupiter square Saturn, we're going to see some type of economic swings up and down big time over the
Hmm.
next few weeks. But with Jupiter square Neptune, we're also going to see a lot of muddying of the waters.
Hmm.
And there's not going to be a lot of clarity in this next few weeks.
No.
But this is short term.
Hmm.
This is, in many ways, the death gasp of the old.
I think so. Hmm.
And I really feel that with all that big, remember that big lineup in Pisces a few couple of months ago?
Yeah.
That was like 4 weeks of wading through treacle.
It really was. Oh, it really was. With
Oh, just
as well with that Venus and Mercury retrograde at the
oh,
same time and the eclipses. Oh,
just never seen nothing like that. It was weird.
it
Um,
was.
and now this is the second big one of the year, and this
Hmm.
the Mars opposition to Saturn Neptune on a new moon or full moon in the first week of August, and
Yeah.
there's also the eclipse on the 21st of September. But those are much more two standalone points, short and
Hmm.
sharp. Whereas the one in March, and to a lesser extent this one we're in now, is more, it's bigger and overinflated.
Yes,
So
it
this is
is.
all the prelude to the actual Saturn Neptune conjunction in February, I think.
Mm. Yeah.
And I feel that we're probably giving astrology a bit of a disservice by just focusing on that, because once Saturn Neptune's out the way,
Mm.
then we've got Saturn sextile Pluto, which could be quite nice. We've got Neptune sextile Pluto,
Hmm.
Neptune sextile Uranus all of next year, and
Yeah.
also Uranus trining Pluto, which is to me is
Hmm.
the big hope
Oh, I
for the.
think so. You can, and all of these are, you and I look at cycles that most astrologers do. I'm not dissing anybody else, but Jupiter Saturn is an opening square. It's kind of, Jupiter is going to move forward. And that's from something that was seeded at the end of 2020. And then Uranus Pluto is an opening aspect as well that was seeded in the 60s. So I just think we're going to see, as you said, really rapid opening and change, or at least the opportunity to grab that opening and change. And I, as an astrologer, want to do that for astrology. You do with your documentary as well.
I've
So
seen that Jupiter-Saturn square will repeat itself
mm,
in the middle of next year.
Yeah.
When Jupiter will go retrograde, Saturn's just about to start going retrograde as Jupiter stops going retrograde.
Mm,
They'll both be square at 15, 16 degrees of
they
Aries Cap.
will. Yeah.
And that is going to be a kind of economic finale
Hmm.
that's developing now.
Yes. Yeah.
But then Pluto will continue through into late 26 and 27. And I'm
Mm.
really
I'll
looking.
give you another period to look at as well. October the 30th to December the 5th of this year. Jupiter gets all the way to its retrograde degree and will be in a trine unbroken flow aspect to Saturn in Pisces, who's back in Pisces.
Indeed.
And they, do you know, they actually station Saturn stations direct and Jupiter stations retrograde at the same degree and minute, 25 degrees 9 minutes,
These are monumentous times.
aren't they? Aren't
There's never been a
they?
time like
No,
it is a
no.
one species lifetime.
Hmm. Yeah.
And there's never been a species like us on Earth before where no other species has ever been able to anticipate futures,
Mm.
let alone laugh at themselves. So it does seem as if we're heading into some type of kind of nexus point in the
Mm.
near future where we're going to go one way or the other, and there's no
Mm.
middle ground.
And I guess some will go one way and some will go the other, but let's hope the majority go towards the co-creative possibility kind of energy. Hmm.
See, at the end of the day, I don't. A lot of astrologers are talking about how there'll be new power blocks, new corporate
Mm.
states as opposed to nation
Mm.
state. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, this is old language.
It is.
This is
It's
not
very
the
old
old language.
language,
It's like,
and
come on,
it's
folks.
just because those tech bros want that, you know.
I've got news
They
for
follow
them.
Curtis Yarvin, who really,
Brilliant.
wants the return to monarchy and things. I always think they're grabbing on with their fingernails, going, "Let me hang
Yes.
on to this power."
What if?
Yeah, yeah.
What if the big change that we're postulating isn't related
Mm,
to specifically just tech or economics or
mm,
war? What
yeah.
if it's in consciousness?
Mm,
Consciousness is available to everyone free of charge.
it is.
You can't
Hmm.
price it.
Hmm.
You can't control it. It's
Yeah.
free. And we're waking up. We're using more and more of our brain.
Hmm.
We're becoming more and more sensual, sensitive, and receptive to what's happening. And many of us are choosing to ignore it because it doesn't pay the bills or it's convenient to
Yeah.
ignore it.
Yeah.
But there's a groundswell.
Oh, there is. And more people are not ignoring it. Even things, I'm an astrologer, yes, but I'm also like I do some shamanic work. I'm not a shaman. Don't I don't do healing and things like that, but I do shamanic journeying with my clients sometimes and things like that in courses. There's more and more people are being drawn to integrating that kind of intuitive, more energetic, consciousness, otherworldly energy into the mundane as well. So, yeah.
What
Hmm.
a great time to be alive and to be an
Isn't
astrologer.
it? I think it's really exciting. Yeah.
But that comes with great responsibility also.
I think so. And I did really want to kind of, talk, give your view on that, and you have done a little bit because I really would like to change the world of astrology as much as I can, as much as my little world of astrology is able to. Steve's reading, my new book for me, and I'm going to look at it. But I feel I've written a bit of a different kind of astrology book than the old dry, these are the rules kind of tomes as well. And I think
Book on Sarah.
astrologers, yeah, my book on dwarf planet series, yeah. And I think people, I think astrologers need to shift into this kind of different energy as well, or the world of astrology does. So
Yeah.
I'm doing what I can to do it. I'm a mentor for OPA, the organization of professional astrology, and I'm trying to mentor them to take this more integrative
So, yeah, I,
approach.
I, I belong to the Groucho Marx School of Astrology. I wouldn't belong to a group that would have me as a member.
OPA's the only one I will be a member of.
No, I'm an outsider, and I like
Yeah,
being on the outside.
I was an outsider, but OPA's going in the direction I would like to see astrology go. So that's why I stick with that one. So
Fair enough.
yeah. Hmm.
At this time and for this time, fine. You
Mm.
may choose to change your mind in the future.
Oh, believe me, I'm good at doing that.
Yeah. As soon
I
as, as
mean,
soon as an organisation starts to become anything but 100% democratic,
hmm
as
yeah,
soon as someone says, "Okay, well, I'm running it now,"
yeah,
as has happened with large, large numbers of astrological groups all around the world.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know. But at the moment, Oprah is going the other way, more democratic. So
Hope so.
yeah, I'll stick with that. But it's going to help though if I can take a group. I'm mentoring a group at the moment, and they're all wanting to bring in a more integrative, co-creative sense of possibility to the work they do in astrology. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Instead of just talking about it on YouTube, which is what I would tend to do normally. So we can all do our part towards it. I think your documentary will, help towards that as well, because of where you start. A lot of history of astrology things have not gone that far back, right? Really.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
also, well, I've done a couple of events this year. I did a
Mm,
smaller event, just me and Penny Thornton, for
mm,
about 60 people in end of February. And then I did a big one with Shifts Happen,
mm,
northwest of London, at the start of May. And in both times, I was able to take groups of students out from the conference halls into the fields and go, look,
mhm,
there's Mars, there's Jupiter, that is a square, or that is a sextile, and you can
mhm,
actually see one sixth of a sky apart. And you can see the moon wasn't up because we deliberately choose times when it's a dark sky, but you can
mhm.
see the constellations in the background, and it's like bringing it to life,
Yeah.
immersing yourself. It's immersive, putting yourself in a real-time field of
Mm,
planetary influence by being literally underneath the planets. That
mhm.
other people will say, "Oh, that's magic," and it's not.
No.
But I understand why they might say it, because it brings a different dimension of experience rather than just staring at screens or
Mm.
books.
Oh, it
It's
does. I am. I often walk. I walk every day, but I often walk really early in the morning so I can see the stars before the sun comes up. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm. And
yeah.
if you do it on a regular basis, you see the movement of the stars
You
too.
do,
Yeah.
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 That last Mars retrograde was a classic example, because
Hmm.
Mars was still so close to the Pollux and Castor.
Mm,
For a month, it was in a triangle formation, and then it slowly began to move underneath them in a straight line, and now
mm,
it's right the other side of them, and it's like you can see it moving every day, just a little bit.
yeah,
And to me, it's always changing,
it
which is
is
why no horoscope can ever be exactly the same as anyone else's.
exactly. And so back to going back to that history where we're kind of in an almost repeat of that time, at least with that Saturn-Neptune at 0 Aries. I also added in a few fixed stars, which of course are fixed. It's us that move, not the stars. And some of the fixed stars have all moved through 3 signs. They were squaring each other at that time, and now they are squaring each other again. So like Regulus, from our perspective, moved to 0 Virgo at the end of 2011, and I've added in some others, and it was quite interesting to go back to that chart for 4,361 and then put the new Saturn Neptune conjunction over it and look at how they were speaking to each other. And it kind of aligns with the yugas in Hinduism as well. All those kind of things. We are just moving into a new age. I just wanted to add that in as well. It's all
Well,
these things are adding to what we're saying. Yeah.
not all fixed stars move at the same rate.
No.
It's because we live relatively briefly, age 75, 80, 85 years. But the with precession, there's 1 degree every 72 years. So
Is
in the
the
space
average, isn't it? Yeah.
time, we might see a fixed star move by 1 degree in our lifetime, which we don't. It's so slow we don't see it. But viewed over 100 lifetimes, that's going to move, 3 signs of the zodiac. But not all of them move at the same speed.
No,
Some of them
no,
move because they're so far away and so big. Algol's been where it is it's moving now, but for a long time it was stationary. As you say, Regulus has moved. Our galactic center has moved from our perception in the last couple of decades. But that's only because the sun is moving around the center of the galaxy. Our solar system is going around the center of the galaxy. So our perception of distant galaxies is changing very slowly, but consistently over a long period of time. So again,
definitely.
nothing is going to be the same as it was.
And I think it was a big deal that Regulus, from our perspective, is now in Virgo, whereas it was in Leo for over 2,000 years. So, it's like, all of those things I think we need to at least think about. Obviously, you cannot go and look at these things in every chart, and you would never do it in a client reading and things like that.
Not actually meaning to in an individual level, but but yeah, I do get your perspective. It's a fascinating film. Bernadette Brady's done a lot of work on fixed stars.
She has. I've got her recordings of a class she did. Yeah.
So far as to say, she's probably the most knowledgeable person on the planet at the time around both fixed stars and Saros cycles.
She is. I do want to say that Regulus was at 2 Gemini, though, when Saturn and Neptune last met at 0 Aries.
Was it now?
It was. According to Astro Gold, some software, ephemeris back then can be a little bit different, but that would be around where it was. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Square to where it is now.
Yeah, and 2 Gemini is the furthest out dwarf planet that we know of so far. Sedna was at 0 Gemini 12,000 years ago. So
well, here we're going to disagree.
Oh, okay. Go on. I'm happy to disagree. I love these debates.
Well, to me, Sedna, Eris, make a peace, whatever.
Oh, Mackie.
Whatever, yeah. They're not round. Oh,
yeah. I don't want to get into an argument whether they're planets or not. It's just more about the timing, because Sedna was at the beginning of Gemini, at the end of the Ice Age, when you were talking about that half big cycle.
What's Saturn's orbit?
Sorry?
Two,
Oh, it's 11,406 years.
so 1,000 years in each sign, approximately.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So again,
So,
I wouldn't look at it in a natal chart, but I just kind of keep it in my mind for these big cycles we're going through.
I mean, I can shoot myself down in flames on this because
Mm,
Pluto's in Scorpio and Sag for 11, 12 years, but it's in Taurus for 30 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
you have to weigh that up. But
Hmm.
there's no one alive at the moment who's got Pluto in Pisces, Aries, Taurus,
Yeah.
Gemini.
Hmm.
And to have Pluto in Cancer, you've got to be born pre 1930.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not many of
So,
those left either. So
ooh,
yeah, yeah. No,
gee,
I just keep those newly discovered, really far out there ones, just in the back of my mind for where they are and where they were at these big cycles of change. And I mentioned Sedna because you mentioned it about your
yeah,
documentary about, so.
not a fan.
Well,
Um,
it's just the age of the end of those ice ages was a big shift in human consciousness. So there you
Something
go.
completely different.
Mm,
Recently, I did at Shifts Happen. I did a big workshop on the astrology of humor,
mm,
and what I found was a lot of people, a lot of mime artists, were all born at the same time in the 1890s with the Uranus-Pluto conjunction.
hmm.
Sorry, Neptune-Pluto conjunction.
Oh,
Dan Laurel, Buster
oh,
Keaton, Harpo
oh,
Marx, all born with Neptune conjunct Pluto in Gemini.
oh! Isn't that funny?
And to me, that's
Yeah,
fascinating. They all
yeah.
found different ways of expressing themselves that weren't
Mm,
verbal, whether it was mime, facial characteristic, body
mm,
language, articulation, and it was a
mm,
different way of communicating. And
yeah,
I don't really know where I've gone with that since then, but it's just something it's fascinating to ponder.
it is. Yeah, all these things are, and yeah, and I agree with you about these astronomical kind of definitions. I really do. I just kind of think the cycle and the discovery, it's kind of telling us something to look back then. That's all. I'm not like kind of going, it means a huge amount. It's just interesting to me that these
Also,
things were there then.
and now
Hmm.
Uranus is about to move into Gemini and try
Mm,
and Pluto for a few years.
hmm.
And
Mm,
we've just in this last year and a half,
mm.
just in the last 18 months, AI
Oh,
has revolutionized our lives.
it,
Now,
2 months for me really. I used it a bit before, but the last 2 months it's just exploding.
I've been for about 6 months now, 9, 8 months.
Mm,
What I've
mm,
realized, having talked to people who have written the initial codes, because
mm,
I've got one or two of them as clients, and I'm
mm,
potentially doing a conference soon. I'm speaking at an AI conference as an astrologer, which is like,
hmm.
really
I
excited.
do.
That's going to happen. Um, what I've realized is that the initial codes for AI were written by a bunch of 20 to 30-year olds,
Hmm. Hmm.
not a bunch of 50 to 70-year olds. So they may have provided the money, but the codes were written by youth
Hmm.
who put their hopes and optimism into it as opposed to the
Mm,
pessimism of age. So
yeah.
I think that AI is going to be a wonderful tool for helping humanity accelerate its evolution.
Oh, me
And
too.
the ideas of AI as some type of Terminator Skynet construct is just it's just really depressing science fiction.
It really is, and all these doom and gloom movies and science fiction things as well. I think they're kind of just the old fears kind of raising
Yeah,
up as well. Everybody I know who's using AI now is using it for positive things. For example, I have a client who's kind of a big time business coach. I would never name the person, But he's dove deep into AI, and he's actually kind of taught AI to do his more basic coaching on business messaging, marketing, and that. And he can send that to people, and the AI asks the questions he would have asked before. and it gives the same answers he would have done, because you can teach it to kind of
Yeah,
think the way you think. Yeah.
there's different types
Yeah.
of AI.
Hmm.
I'm particularly good around ChatGPT as opposed to
Mm.
OpenAI or something like that. And the person who's been helping me with
Mm.
ChatGPT, he's fed ChatGPT a lot of my videos, a
Hmm.
lot of my writing, so that it's got to recognise my style and my
Hmm.
personality.
Hmm.
He's also been able to clone my voice,
Yeah,
which is a bit weird.
that is weird.
Being
I have
able
not
to
tried that.
create an avatar of
Oh,
me,
oh,
so the avatar can use the cloned voice and say anything it's programmed to say. So, I've
wow.
already heard my voice saying, "Oh, anyone who thinks I've been a vegetarian is just stupid. I eat meat all the time." When in reality, I've been a vegetarian 45 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's me saying it. It's just the AI
Hmm.
is doing it. But I happen to trust the people who are doing this implicitly. So, and
Yeah.
it's just done as a demonstration of what can be done. So
Hmm.
again, it comes down to intent.
It does. Yeah, yeah. And there are cloned audios out there that people have done of,
All
well-known
the
people.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of scams.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Lot.
there's definitely a lot of scams. So people have to use their, common sense, really. And but Uranus in Gemini is really going to
Oh,
kind
I'm
of
so excited
just
by it. I can see it.
explode it.
I can see it becoming a kind of software interface with the human genome in some shape or form,
Mm,
in a way that isn't going to make us robots or cyborgs, but is going to give us access to a higher level of consciousness and interfacing with,
mhm,
like AI or ASI, which is the next step, in a
mm.
way that's at the moment only just about conceivable. And the genie's out the bottle, so you either adapt to it or you go and hide under the bed. But that's silly.
It is
Um,
silly. Yeah.
and we just got to go with it now because this is
Hmm.
next step. This is the next level of evolution.
Yeah. Yep. I will tell you that AI helped me with my book that
Yeah.
I've sent you. It didn't help me write it
No.
particularly. I had written it and researched and done all the stuff you do when you're doing a book, but I uploaded what I had into it, and it helped me organize it and just
Exactly.
polish it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It helped improve what I'd already done.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can tell when someone's creating a song or writing a book just using AI without any
Hmm.
work themselves because it lacks soul.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
something AI can never do. For example, with charts, AI
Hmm.
can give you all the information you need on every placement, every sign, house, and aspect. It can
Hmm.
even integrate them and explain how different aspects work, but it cannot synthesize
No.
like
No. No.
humans.
No. You
Now,
cannot feed a chart in and do that and use that
now,
to do a client reading. No.
and I
Mm-mm.
want to step a little bit into the unknowable here.
Mm.
I don't do angels, I don't do channeling or mediumship or spirit guides or anything like that.
Mm.
I have a great relationship with spirit.
Hmm.
I call it the upstairs department, call it what you like. But
I call it my inner voice. There you go.
okay,
Yeah.
I I as I get older, I learn to trust not so much my intuition or my feelings or my thoughts, but my instinct.
Yes. Hmm.
Instinct, below the navel stuff.
Yeah.
And that's instantaneous.
Mm.
And it seems that there's also some type of help, if you like, coming from, I don't know if it's my higher self or elsewhere.
Mm.
I certainly don't do aliens and ETs, but
Mm.
I do
I don't.
higher dimensions of consciousness.
Yes.
And I get help. I get little nudges going, yeah, this person's not telling you the truth. Trust your
Yeah.
instinct. and
Yeah.
I'm never, very rarely wrong.
Mm. Mhm.
And that way, that prevents me, touch wood, from being scammed or
Yeah.
taken for granted. So
Yeah.
far, anyway.
Yeah. And I actually think Jupiter in Cancer, which is imminent, is going to help with that, because I think it's going to help people to learn to trust their gut if they follow the nudges, especially starting with this square to Saturn. That's like get
Yes.
a bit of a reality check and trust your gut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Traditionally, Jupiter does like being in Cancer,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's exalted there. And
It is. But not
mm,
that I use those
well,
words normally, but
well, as a Cancerian with Sagittarius moon,
oh,
I have
you're
a somewhat ambivalent relationship with Jupiter's the only planet in my chart that gets no aspects.
oh,
So it's wild. It's in Leo in the 11th.
oof.
So um,
I have Jupiter in Sagittarius, just 7 degrees from my sun, and I'm Sag rising, so it's my
oh,
guiding planet. There you go.
you've done very well in not letting your waistline get too big.
I know. Well, it did for a while. I managed to channel my Saturn in Capricorn to decrease that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but coming back to the reality of it all,
Mm,
when you look at the intensity and the concentration
mm,
of planetary energy at this time, and by this time I
mm,
mean in the last year and a half and this next 2.5 years,
mm.
there's never been a period like this in history.
Never.
But this points to some type of resolution, some type of outcome, which can
Hmm.
either be dystopian, it's either be a breakdown or a breakthrough.
Hmm. And there may be a little bit of a mix of both. Some people apparently seem to need to break down before they actually kind of wake
Oh,
up a
yeah.
little bit. So, yeah, yeah.
And you said about there may be a kind of split. This, the kind side of me will says no, we've got to take everyone with us, but there's
Mm,
some people who will not give up
yeah, yeah, yeah.
their creature comforts
Hmm. Hmm.
for the chance of becoming more spiritually aware.
Yeah.
To me, this is I terminize this the difference between human beings and
Mm,
humans being, and
yeah.
it's semantics, but it involves taking responsibility for your consciousness
Hmm. Hmm.
as
Well,
opposed to just buying into the fodder.
exactly, exactly. And I'm not. I wish no harm on anybody, the same as you, Steve. But it's just it just is reality that Saturn. There you go. That some people will cling to what things, and they don't want change, and they don't want this. And yeah. So.
Someone at Shifts Happen said to me, "Go on, then. What's your solution for solving the world's population problem?" And I just said, I didn't even think, the words just fell out my mouth. Went, shoot all the Virgos. And how to alienate 1/12 of the world's population overnight. But
Ooh.
yeah, but, uh,
I
but
actually like healthy Virgos because they really want to do useful work in the world. But I get
yeah,
what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've got
Yeah.
those in any sign. My
I
evil,
know.
as you know, I have an evil twin brother,
You do. Yes.
and he does
Yeah.
stand-up comedy, and he rips the everything out of each sign of a zodiac. So I
Oh,
can be,
well, I can do that too. I've got a healthy dose of rip taking memes going out on social media. So
yeah. I
yeah.
think it's great. It's dark humor, but hey, it's
Hmm.
great. I love it.
Yeah. And of course, neither of us have solution to all world's problems. I think the solutions are available, and it's up to us collectively whether we will take those opportunities. For example, I think we're not far from clean energy, limitless clean energy, and I think it really could happen. But
Mm,
that's where the free will comes in, right? So,
right.
mhm,
Um,
yeah.
there is something we could do. There is one thing
Mm,
that would make a difference, and I've been a proponent of it since the late 1970s. I've
mm,
said it so many times, and I will say it again. If astrology were taught in schools,
mm,
2 generations, we'd see an end to
mm,
warfare, violence, misogyny, racism, and the division
Mm,
of people on religious, cultural, skin color, or nationality grounds.
mm-hmm,
Everyone would naturally gravitate towards social groups that are similar to themselves.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
As shifts happen, when everyone applied for tickets, I said, "What's your moon sign?" Because I was going to get a table of people with
Oh,
different moons. But we quickly realised that certain moon signs just wanted to stay at home and watch it online in comfort, and certain moon signs really wanted to be there. We had a big imbalance. There was two or
yeah.
three people there with a moon in Libra, but about 15 people there with a moon in Scorpio. So
God. Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
And
quite
and
huge.
there's an awful lot of astrologers have Gemini moons too. Like me. Like me.
Oh well, I got a
Mm,
Sag moon, so
yeah. So opposing.
um,
And you're going to do shifts happen again, aren't you? So,
yes, nothing has been signed yet.
no, no. But
But we are looking at we're going to be doing it next year, same
mm-hmm,
approximate time.
mm,
And there will be an announcement before the end of July. And
mm.
this time we will. We didn't quite set out last time because we organised it all in 9 weeks. This
I
time
was
we
going
will.
to say it happened very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
one's called Shifts Happen To, TOO.
Oh, I like that.
And there will be then in 2027.
Mm.
If we have this is a pipe dream at the moment, but there are feelers going out. There will be Shifts Happen Edinburgh and Shifts Happen Dublin.
Oh.
And
Mm.
maybe elsewhere as well. But I have to weigh this up against the fact that I'm getting older and my energy levels aren't as
Yeah.
strong as they used to be. My spirit is, but my
Mm.
body is beginning to protest if I do too much. So I have to weigh this
Yeah.
up. But yeah, as long as astrology, because astrology sustained me all my life. Without astrology, I probably wouldn't be here now.
Mm.
And I know that astrology will. This is why I consider astrology to be a she rather than an it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a persona, and she looks after me.
Mm.
So long may it run. She looks after you as well.
Definitely. She does, indeed. And Jupiter's blessings, I've always got those as well going on. So, as well, lots of luck and things. But so, well, three options. Maybe I'll choose one and go to it this time. But,
But, but really, coming back to where we are now, I know we're
mm,
approaching the end, but coming
mm,
back to where we are now, this is such an important time for us, both collectively and
yeah,
individually. And I don't
yeah,
just mean this next year and a half to 2 years. I also mean this next few weeks.
yeah,
Because the decisions we make and take individually over this next 2 or 3 weeks through to the solstice are going to send fishing lines a long way into the future.
they
So
really
it's
are. Hmm.
important we don't get caught up in the hype and spin of the world, which is at the
Hmm.
moment all over the place.
Oh gosh, it really is. And I'm obviously aware of what's going on, but I really do not get caught up in it. I'm just like I go into observer mode and just go, okay. Roll my eyes a few times and go and get on with my life. And I think that's why I felt the urgency to get my book out as well. It just feels like it's the perfect time.
I've
And
told all my I've,
probably why you felt called to get the documentary done and out there as well, and your event.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, at this time I
Hmm.
want to get astrology out into the world. And
Yeah.
particularly this next couple of weeks, I've just said to all my students, look, it's hype and spin. Sit back, get your popcorn, and just shake your head. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah. Roll your eyes too and just go, oh, that again.
truly use an English word that seems to be suddenly sweeping the globe for the first time in 60 years. This time is truly bonkers.
It is, and I love that word. It is bonkers, absolutely bonkers. People are going bonkers, losing their mind, but not everybody is. There's some that are actually finding themselves as well. So, well, Steve, thank you for agreeing to come on my channel again at such short notice. It's I just really love talking to you because, and I always
Yeah.
I love it when we disagree as well.
Well, one day
Because I
we'll
think
get together and have coffee in person. That would be
we
another, and
will.
we'll put it out on YouTube. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, we will. Probably next year when you do these other events. So, yay. Okay, so see you next time, Steve.
Thanks, my friend. Bye bye.
Bye bye.